have a great group of panelists tonight. We have had an opportunity to have some conference calls in the previous weeks and talk about entrepreneurship and some of the things that are evolving within their various areas, whether it's consumer, business services, and on the international side. And so I think that from a scope here tonight, we're going to cover a lot of different areas that I think that will be helpful and fruitful for everyone in the room.
My quick background is I'm a general founding partner of a fund called Edgewood Ventures. We invest into early stage technology companies. Our focus areas are two areas. One is India and one is in Silicon Valley.
And I started a company called Key Food Ingredients. And later, Key Food Ingredients become a multi-million-dollar company, an industry leader in dehydrated garlic, onion, and vegetable business.
So I started a company called Bump Technologies, really in like the second or third week of school at Chicago. It's a technology that allows you to connect two mobile phones by literally just bumping them together. So we started the company really to solve a personal problem, and the problem was being in the Winter Garden at Chicago, meeting all these new classmates, and typing in everybody's phone number and email address. I was a former engineer. I thought that was pretty ridiculous. So we built a product to solve that problem, and turns out people like to use it.
Prior to Metrically, I was part of the founding team at 80/20 Media. We published JPEG Magazine. I started Metrically about a year and a half ago. We help businesses connect their data from external sources, things like Google Analytics, Salesforce, Twitter, Facebook, Zendesk, GetSatisfaction, as well as their internal data from databases and spreadsheets. Help them pull it all together in one place and create dashboards to manage their business.
So we launched on iPhone originally, and that was back in March of 2009. Getting our first customer was very easy. We submitted an application to the Apple App Store. They eventually approved it. It was launched, and the first day we had, several hundred customers that download the app and use it. The next day we had several thousand. The next day we had another few thousand, and it just grew, very quickly for us. So obtaining customers is never and has never been a problem for us. Retaining them is kind of where we focus our efforts.
We launched a private beta in March of this year, and the challenge at that point, and this maybe leads into talking about retaining customers, was identifying of these customers pouring through the front door, who were we valuable to, and how could we really be valuable to them. And that was a 6-month process for us, learning through the private beta to launching a public beta at the end of August, where now we've been able to grow from those about 800 private beta customers to 4,000 companies now.
So first thing, let me just repeat a few things. So in 2005 is when we actually first approached the Indian market. We had two basically premises. First thing was never do anything with the Indian government. Second thing was do not do anything with large business houses. And for those who know India, India is run not by corporations, but by large business houses. And when we got into the market, we slowly and surely found out that we had a third premise, was to forget premise 1 and 2. Because all the growth areas was in government and government spending. Give an example, infrastructure, government spending almost $1 trillion on infrastructure. Defense, they're spending $500 billion on defense. Clean tech, another few $100 billion. Education, another few $100 billion. So the government is really where not the innovation, but where the monies are coming from. So basically, from a customer acquisition standpoint, it's more customer retention or government retention.
So for us, retention really comes down to being useful and bringing them back to the site. And the interesting thing about our business is all of our founding team, we come from a more consumer background. And I think that's a really important trend you see right now in business services, which is taking a consumer approach to business software. And so for us, it's really about engaging, like you would with consumers, engaging firsthand with these companies, understanding how they're using it right now, and actually literally sitting over their shoulder as they use the product, fixing it, and learning what you can do to make it more useful for them on an ongoing basis. And so for us, the measure of a retained customer is, have they been back in the last week? Have they been back in the last month? And we've done a lot to optimize that along the way.
Let's talk about another area that I think is another fascinating topic. So Steve Kaplan published, and I have a copy here for nighttime reading for any of you who want to take it home with you, But Journal of Finance, February 2009, should investors bet on the jockey or the horse? Evidence from the evolution of firms from early business plans to public companies. And I thought this was joking aside, this was a fascinating study that Steve did. It really goes to this kind of age-old question, is it the team or is it the idea?
I think that any idea you have, and there's probably, everybody here has probably 10 business ideas. I know I always have had my kind of notepad of things that I want to do. And the difference between that and a successful company, certainly market plays a huge part of that, but it's first step actually doing it, and then second step having a good team to execute on that. And that really makes, in my opinion, all the difference in the world.
What we do in India is that we figure out trying to reduce the market risk. In all due respect to technologies, we think the technology is an outcome. The market is where you have to, with customers, is where you have to convince and bring in first. So all the ventures that we've started in India and we've invested in India, we've always had a customer lined up before we invest into the deals. So in India, it's more the horse that we bet on than the job.
If you look at a company like McDonald's, for example, they very well instructed. People will have less impact in their business. You see the job turnovers very, very fast. And if you look like a company like us, so because it takes time to really build the infrastructure, so those people become such important in your business. So I think in my business, people is extremely important.
But what you're seeing right now with angel investing is really interesting. It certainly plays into the way the economics have kind of been shrunk down, so you need much less money. We've been very lean as a company ourselves. And now there's a lot of angel investors who can write 10, 20, 50, maybe even $100,000 checks. And I think that has two effects. One is it provides greater accessibility to capital for people starting businesses, but it's always much, much harder than you expect, okay? And unless you have a runaway hit like Bump, which is an awesome product and I really envy, it's a lot harder than you expect. But that money's there. There's lots of investors at that kind of seed and pre-seed stage. What that's done at the same time is it's pushed, in my opinion, the traditional VC investors up a level in terms of, they're still looking to put in $3 million to $5 million. Maybe they'll come down to 1.5, 2, some of them. But the requirements that you need to reach, because all these companies are bootstrapped and funded on $50,000, $100,000 worth of seed money, they're getting to much further down the road. And so now when you go talk to a VC, you're competing with companies that have revenues, have customers, whereas you dial back 5 years, you don't even have to go back to the first bubble days. Back then, you could fund a business on a product about ready to launch with a good team at the venture capital stage, whereas now that hurdle is much further along. That's at least what I see.
I think what's interesting is, again, 10, 15 years ago, there was this idea of we've got to get venture funding, or we've got to get as quickly as possible. And I think one of the lessons learned over the past 15 years is, it's actually you're better off waiting. And this idea of you can build a company, build an idea, generate revenue, get the customers, build the team, do that as long as possible, because at the end of the day, and I'm interested, for some thoughts here, once you take that money, the clock has started. And the company's trajectory has changed forever.
So our model is a little bit different in terms of we actually start these companies or these projects on our own. So the model is a little bit different in terms of, to your question. But it's interesting to see that less capital, how much less capital can take you. I'm sure, Devin, you've gotten way farther than you've ever imagined with the amount of capital that you have.
Definitely.
The hunger is there. So it's always saying when you're always hungry a little bit at night, you do a little bit more. Yep. So what we do, at least in India, is we finance the companies enough so we can get to a certain milestone. Making sure the product is released, making sure the product has, besides customers, is already in flight trials or whatever trials it is. So Matt, to answer your question, things have changed, and it has changed really dynamically both in Silicon Valley as well as in India.
I think this part, University of Chicago Business School play an important role. If you come to me just with an idea, I probably wouldn't fund your business. But if you come to me with a good business plan, and I see this from our graduation program, I see amazing business plan. I was just amazed how I learned from school how other people did this by end of the year. So I will fund people who coming to me with a good business plan.
Obviously, whenever you've got an investor, you want to think about, how deep are those pockets? What is their ability to fund multiple rounds? If it's a traditional firm, where are they in the life of the fund? But all those kind of standard questions that a seasoned entrepreneur would ask don't necessarily apply to the angel investor or the super angel. So for those of you that have received angel investing or do angel investing, what are the questions that an entrepreneur in this audience should be asking that angel investor?
I think that's an important kind of lesson to learn when you talk about funding from VCs versus funding from angels, and how what Dave is talking about here is really enabled by the fact that a VC is putting the money forward so that he can focus not on revenues but on growing the base, because the payout is going to be larger there. And I think for entrepreneurs out there, you really need to think about, is the company that I'm building, are we trying to go huge? In which case, skip the arguments about VC or angel money. It's money, and you need a lot of it. Or are you trying to build a business that, your exit's 10, 20, $50 million, then you're looking at something that angel money, even longer term, is more appropriate.
I think the reason the super angel has emerged, and the other reason that the VCs are now investing in small seed rounds, is it's just so much cheaper to start a company now. I mean, we started Bump and we had 1 million users and we spent $3,000 to do that. Buying a Macintosh computer, paying $99 for our Apple developer license, and then a few other little things. So it's, you don't have to go buy servers. You don't have to go figure out, your IT department. You just get on Google Apps, you go on Amazon Web Services, and you're done. It costs a few $1,000s. So that kind of motivates the shift of investing.
My thoughts on that, you look 15 years ago at venture capital, and everything was about chips and semiconductors for the most part. And, that was the huge kind of booming industry. Eventually, margins got dropped down to the point where it was no longer interesting from a venture capital perspective. I think if you're a proponent of the concept that innovation's dying, you're going to say that's the same thing that's happening right now with the internet. But I think there's a real big difference between the internet and semiconductors, and that's that the internet has applicability. It's this lateral thing, it's this horizontal thing that has applicability into lots of different industries. And I think what we're seeing now is how the internet, how social networks, how the connectivity and the information, the accessibility of information is driving innovation in lots of different categories. So I think it's a depressing concept that innovation's dying. I think we're seeing it spread into other areas.
You have to see the cycles and the trends, and some of the best investors, whether it's venture or private equity, have been around long enough that they think back in 94, 95 about these companies. Sun Microsystems is a great example, right? Little sleepy server company. They kind of, SunSpark Workstation, other things, and they were working on things that, of course, was almost tangential to the business. But as the market started to evolve and develop, all of a sudden things that weren't necessarily considered innovative became innovative. So in many ways, one takeaway could be innovation is happening right now, we just don't know about it. And that a lot of the stuff that it's going to be changing markets, moving markets in 5 or 10 years is not even going to see the light of day. So, and you really can't see that until you go back and look at multiple cycles.
We started Bump, and we did Y Combinator, and we got $16,000 from them. It sounds like not much money, but you're able to do a lot with that amount of money now. So I think it's a great time to have that approach because there are a bunch of angel investors who want to get involved in these companies, and they'll write $10,000 check, and you can do a lot with that these days.
Yep. And what you'll find is if somebody's going to write you that check, that $10,000 check, they're most likely going to introduce you to 4 or 5 other people who can also write you a check. There's a real network there, and I'm sure tapping into Booth, you'll find some of the kind of roots there. And then I think there's a real good success story. I haven't used it personally, but Venture Hacks is a service that is getting a lot of traction, essentially being that market for ideas in this growing group of angels.
So there's 12 venture-backed companies that went public last year. Today, to date, 38 have gone public, and 200 have already been sold. So what that tells me is that, and I see that in terms of really early stage investments have gone up. The market is great in terms of funding environment coming back in, mainly because of liquidity events are happening. So to answer your question, then yes, I think the market is fantastic. It's a great time to be an entrepreneur.